Dog saves drowning baby gorilla. The reaction was incredible. Have you ever witnessed a moment so powerful it changed everything you thought you knew about courage? The river had become a monster. What was once a gentle stream winding through the dense jungle had transformed overnight into a raging torrent of muddy fury. A sudden, brutal storm had flooded the natural channels, turning the water into a churning, violent force that swallowed everything in its path. And caught in that merciless current was a tiny baby gorilla. The small creature was nothing more than a dark shadow tossed by the waves, its glossy fur matted with thick mud. Its fragile fingers desperately clutched at a smooth stone, slippery as glass, as the current slowly tore away its grip and its hope. Those bright black eyes searched frantically for help that wasn't coming. On the riverbank, the gorilla troop watched helplessly. The females screamed. The younger ones thrashed in the branches, unable to comprehend the tragedy unfolding before them. Their wild cries gradually became wails of despair, carried away by the pounding rain. The troop's leader, a massive silverback, rose on the shore. His chest heaved in a slow, solemn motion before he struck it with a series of thunderous blows. It was a call, a cry of rage and pain combined. The entire jungle seemed to hold its breath. The relentless water continued its work, indifferent to the grief of the living. But a few meters away, two figures watched the scene unfold. One was a man, Marcus, a seasoned explorer who knew these forests better than anyone. The other, shorter and golden, was his faithful companion, an amber-coated golden retriever named Cooper. Both stood frozen, paralyzed by fear and helplessness. Marcus followed the small black form swept away by the current with his eyes. His heart pounded wildly, matching the roar of the torrent. First, he grabbed a long branch bristling with thorns and reached it over the water, hoping it would reach the infant. But the branch snapped almost instantly, torn away and swallowed by the flow. Then he untied a rope from his pack, wound it around his waist, searched for a solid rock to anchor himself. Yet the river's force made even the ground tremble. No human invention could rival nature's brutality. Marcus felt tiny, useless. The wind ripped his face, rain blurred his vision. In a surge of desperate hope, he shouted, hold on, little one!" But his voice was lost in the tumult, swallowed by the river's incessant roar.
On his knees in the mud, Marcus felt desolation wash over him. The drama unfolding before him had no place for a human savior. He closed his eyes, ready to witness the inevitable. But beside him, Cooper hadn't looked away. His honey-colored eyes were fixed on the small being drowning before them. When Marcus whispered in a trembling voice, "Stay here, please, don't go," the dog slowly turned his head toward him. It was a simple look, deep, calm, charged with pure resolve. No fear, no hesitation, only the awareness that a life could be saved. And without a bark, without a sudden movement, he leaped. Cooper plunged into the river. His entry was clean, deliberate. The shock of the icy water made him shudder, but he paddled powerfully, following a calculated oblique trajectory. He wasn't fighting against the current, he was using it, letting the river's force carry him while advancing toward the baby gorilla. On the shore, Marcus remained petrified. The image of his golden companion disappearing into the water's fury took his breath away. For an endless moment, he saw nothing. Then, suddenly, a head emerged, ears flattened, eyes determined. Cooper breathed in gasps, but swam obstinately toward the center of the current. The gorilla troop had fallen silent. Even the frozen silverback seemed to understand the gravity of what was happening. A creature from outside their world was defying death to save one of their own. This was no longer a battle of instinct. This was something more.
The baby gorilla, at the end of his strength, finally released the stone. His body slipped into the torrent. He disappeared for a moment beneath the waves, then resurfaced, half-conscious. That's when Cooper reached him. With a firm movement, he positioned himself to offer his back, and the infant, by some miracle of instinct, clung to it. His tiny fingers dug into Cooper's soaked fur. Marcus, tears streaming down his face, followed the scene. Every second felt like an eternity. Cooper paddled relentlessly, his muscles tense beneath the surface, while the river continued to push him back. He advanced meter by meter, carried by a force that belonged only to him, the force of compassion. On the opposite bank, the silverback watched, still motionless, his dark pupils reflecting a mixture of astonishment and respect. The world had just witnessed an act that neither instinct nor reason could explain. And in that chaos of water and fear, a simple truth was born. Life recognizes life, no matter what form it takes. Cooper fought with every ounce of strength against the current. Each stroke of his paws cut through the water with almost supernatural determination. The baby gorilla, gripped to his back, trembled, his cries muffled by the storm. Around them, the river roared, crashing against rocks like a hungry monster. At any moment, a branch or floating trunk threatened to strike them. But Cooper kept going, on and on, meter after meter, his breath mixing with the rain. On the shore, Marcus ran along the river, his boots sinking into the mud. He shouted his companion's name, his heart ready to burst. His rational mind, the explorer's mind, knew how futile it was. Yet he continued, refusing to look away, as if his voice could somehow sustain the animal's courage. Through the mist and spray, he finally made out the golden silhouette battling the waves. His dog, faithful beyond the impossible, carrying the baby gorilla on his back like a fragile treasure. Marcus felt his legs tremble. There was something sacred about this vision. The world seemed suspended, as if nature itself was waiting to see how this story would end. But the current doubled in violence. An enormous tree stump carried by the flow struck Cooper head-on. The impact was so powerful, Marcus thought all was lost. Cooper disappeared for a moment beneath the surface, before reappearing, clearly injured. The infant, terrified, clung with all his might, his fingers digging deeper into the soaked fur. Cooper, despite the pain, kept moving forward. His focused gaze never left the shore where his master waited.
Marcus searched for a solution. Further down, a dead arm of the river formed a less violent zone, protected by mangrove roots. He rushed toward it, slipping, falling, getting up, ignoring the rain and fear. When he reached the spot, he threw himself into the water up to his waist. The cold took his breath away, but he extended his arms. "Here, over here," he cried, his throat tight. Cooper, as if understanding, let himself drift in that direction. Every meter gained seemed like a miracle. Finally, in one last effort, he reached the calm zone.
Marcus grabbed him by the collar, pulled him toward shore, then seized the baby gorilla. Trembling and covered in mud, he dragged them both out of the water and fell to his knees, unable to speak. Cooper collapsed on the ground, his chest heaving in an irregular rhythm. His eyes closed for a moment, then slowly reopened, seeking his master's gaze. Marcus placed a hand on his head, his voice breaking. "You did it, brave boy. You did it." But before he could catch his breath, a deep sound rose behind him. Branches parted, and the forest seemed to open. The gorilla troop was approaching. Their massive silhouettes stood out against the gray stormlight. At the front, the silverback advanced with measured steps, his gaze fixed on Marcus and the dog lying beside him. The air filled with an almost palpable tension. Marcus felt his heart stop. He knew one gesture from this giant could be fatal, yet he didn't move. The baby gorilla, nestled in his arms, let out faint whimpers. When the mother approached, Marcus let her come. She passed him without even looking, all her attention on her infant. With a rough cry, she took him against her chest. The sound she made then was neither a scream nor a roar, but a wail, a note of relief so deep it made the forest vibrate. The other gorillas stayed back, their faces grave. The silverback approached further. He stopped a few meters from Marcus. The man, soaked and exhausted, still held his dog against him. The giant observed him at length, without hostility, but with an almost human curiosity. Silence settled, broken only by the trickling of water. Then, in a slow, solemn gesture, the silverback struck his chest with a single blow. The sound resonated like thunder in the returned calm. It wasn't a warning. It was a sign, a salute, a thank you. The gorilla's gaze met Marcus's, and in that silent exchange, everything was said.
Marcus bowed his head slightly, unable to hold back the tears blurring his vision. The mother, clutching her infant, retreated toward the group. The silverback remained a moment longer, then slowly turned away. The troop disappeared into the vegetation, fading gradually into the humid greenery. All that remained was the sound of rain and Cooper's labored breathing. Marcus placed his hand on his companion, his forehead against the soaked muzzle. "You're a hero," he whispered, "the greatest I've ever known." And as the storm moved away, a ray of sunlight finally pierced the veil of clouds. The calmed river resumed its murmur. The world had become silent again, but nothing would ever be the same. The days that followed passed slowly. The jungle resumed its rhythm. The river flowed peacefully again, and nature gradually erased the traces of the storm. Yet Marcus returned every morning to the same place, where it had all happened. He sat on a flat stone and watched the current as if searching for an answer in the moving reflections of the water. One morning, as mist rose above the river, a movement caught his attention. On the opposite bank, between the trees, he spotted the gorilla troop. The silverback was there, imposing and calm. The mother at his side, holding her infant, now livelier, stronger. Their eyes met again. The giant raised his arm, slowly struck his chest with a single gesture. Marcus stood frozen, tears in his eyes. Cooper, sensing the familiar presence, sat up and let out a soft, almost joyful bark. Then the silverback turned his head toward the forest and let out one last guttural cry, deep as a farewell. The sound crossed the river, lost itself among the trunks, and faded in the wind. Marcus smiled. He knew this encounter wasn't chance. It was a reminder. Life, when guided by the heart, erases all boundaries. Yes, my friend, "Maybe we'll see them again someday," he murmured, stroking Cooper's golden fur. The morning light spread over the river, making the water shimmer with gold and emerald. The wind still carried the scent of rain and damp earth. Marcus breathed deeply. He felt gratitude flow through him. Gratitude for life, for nature, for this courageous soul at his side. He stood, looked at the forest one last time, and slowly began the journey home. The jungle closed its curtain of foliage behind him, as if to guard the secret of what it had just revealed. And in the returned calm, he understood that some stories have no end. They continue to resonate in the hearts of those who have heard them. Have you ever witnessed an act of pure compassion that changed your perspective on life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe. Sometimes the greatest heroes walk on four legs, and their courage reminds us what truly matters in this world.